Hello, everybody. My name is Harini Krishnan, and I go to Folsom High School. Welcome to Know Your Charity, a talk show series that I'm honored to be hosting this year. The intent of this series is to bring on different leaders and representatives of various nonprofit and charitable organizations and have them talk to us about what they do and the great humanitarian work that they do for the community. I'm hoping that through this series, we will get to learn about what these organizations do and how we can help out in the community. Today, I have with me Sudha Rajagopalan, as who I fondly know as Sudha Auntie. Sudha is a corporate leader turned into a Harikatha exponent in recent years. Sudha worked as a software professional for over 2 decades in many leading organizations in the Silicon Valley. In 2008, her partial visual impairment forced an end to her corporate career. Through Harikathas, Sudha has raised funds for several charities, particularly to educate the blind and visually impaired. Sudha is currently the president of Access Braille. Sudha brings to their team the visual impairment perspective on their efforts and ideas. Sudha is a role model to many people, both sighted and visually impaired, with her sense of purpose and positive outlook. Thank you so much, Sudha Auntie, for coming and speaking with us.
Thank you, Harini, for having me over.
Yeah, of course. So let's get started. So what is Access Braille?
So Access Braille is a nonprofit organization that was started by my friend, Vijay Dilip. She had a brush with blindness in 2006 or 7, around that time. And so she wanted to help the community, the visually impaired community. So she started this organization. At the time, it was named as Vidya Vriksha. And since it's more than a mouthful, we decided to name it as Access Braille. So the main purpose of Access Braille is to give educational materials and support to all the visually impaired and the blind people, particularly students in developing nations. And we started out with Ghana, Libya, and of course, India and Nepal. But slowly, as we have been doing this work for the last few years, we figured out that having somebody on the ground in any of these nations help us to really serve them the best. So we found a partner in India with whom we've been working for the last 14 years.
Wow, that's awesome. And what does Access Braille do for the blind community?
So we started with many different things because the way we function is we kind of get the needs from the community, the visually impaired community, and then we act upon it. So we particularly don't really go with one purpose only. The ultimate purpose is to educate and provide educational and accessible materials to as many visually impaired people and blind people as possible. So we started with first distributing Braille kits all over in all these developing countries that I talked about. In fact, actually, we even had camels go up and horses go up to Nepal area and distribute Braille kits to all the visually impaired kids. And then we followed it up with vans, the mobile vans, which would go from one rural area to another, so that the kids who got the Braille kit could get practice with somebody who is trained to teach them Braille, other than their parents. And then we slowly got into the digital libraries that you are particularly familiar with, Harini, that we partnered with Bookshare, and we started producing a lot of books that would be digitally be available for the visually impaired. And then when the 3D printing was at its peak, we started making 3D objects that would help the visually impaired students to touch and feel several things like globe, or even human anatomy And then, if you say apple, if a blind person who has never seen an apple, then they would get to touch and feel it. So like that, we produce 3D objects and we distribute it to many of these children. And we used to have a Braille magazine published on a very periodic basis, which was actually spearheaded by students from the US in collaboration with the visually impaired students themselves. So as you could see, we have been doing many different things. And of late, what we have realized is that there are enough technologies that are available. And what the visually impaired community needs the most is funds for them to have their own gadget, their own equipment. Because in India, not every kid has a smartphone or every kid has a computer that they could use, especially in this pandemic. If you didn't have a device that you could connect to be on Zoom or to be in a classroom setting with your teacher, then you have no chance of learning anything.
I think it's so amazing at all the things that you've done for these kids. Are these things that you're doing only for kids, or are there also materials available for adults as well?
Yes, it's for both. Our main focus is for students because we both at Access Braille, we believe that the visually impaired students get education on par with the sighted. So we put as much energy for the students, but at the same time, my body is pretty old and I am a perpetual student. So I kind of understand the need for adults, especially people like me who lost the vision in between, to be able to get back to things that they were doing. So a couple of years back in Rajasthan and I think in the Haryana area, we supported a group of adults who were getting their laptops and a boot camp training for them to be able to use the laptops, and also mobility training. That's using the cane, how to go around. And then, of course, the assistive technologies training, and then even a little bit of a life skill. It is. I can say it from my experience that it is a big adjustment when you have vision and you don't have vision, how to do things. So we gave them the whole package. So like that, every year we do help a certain number of adults as well, and then we have heard great testimonials from them saying that they've been able to get a job or they've been able to get back into technologies to keep their minds and bodies alert. So we've been able to help anybody and everybody based on the need that comes about.
Okay, that's great. It's very inspirational to hear all of these stories. So you were talking earlier about how you do all these things, and how would you get funding for all of these projects and things that you are providing for the visually impaired community?
Yeah, that's a good question, Harini. So what we used to do is to do fundraisers every year. And then that's where my Harikatha, the storytelling art form, was used. So in 2012 was my first Harikatha ever that I did for Access Braille fundraiser. And it was received with so much enthusiasm. And I'm so blessed to have a big community out here which is able to support me, the visually impaired. And I feel that I'm really fortunate, and I want that same kind of community for every visually impaired person out there, student or adult. So we used to do fundraisers, and people would attend it, and then they would contribute very generously, and those are the funds that we would use for any of our projects based on whatever we have. And of course, in the pandemic, before the pandemic, we did a karaoke event. So every Valentine's Day, around that time, we would do karaoke event. And, of course, we wanted to take it off in a big way, but we've not been able to do it because of the pandemic. But people attended and people participated and people enjoyed and people understand. And we definitely tell them about the difficulties of a visually impaired person. And to some extent, they see me as well, so they understand. And So we raised funds through that. And this last year has been a very, very different experience for us. We participated in Giving Tuesday. And the idea came about when Saksham, the organization in India, our partner organization, they requested that we fund at least 30 students for having this entire kit, starting from a gadget of their choice, which could be a phone, a computer, could be a refreshable braille display, or any reading device, any of that stuff. And then, of course, mobility training and technology, assistive technology training and life skill training. All of that together per person, they were asking for $350. We thought, oh my God, $350 is quite a bit of money, but it's not like, people will not be contributing. So we were kind of we're getting ready to start the fundraising event for Giving Tuesday. Okay, so at that time, I was not that savvy with Facebook posting and things like that. So one of the student volunteers, helped us out. And I gave her all the credentials, and then she was going to go post. And then as soon as she logs into that page, it says, oh, this page is temporarily available. Log back again. So we tried several times, and then I reached out to friends who know a little bit more about Facebook or know a lot about Facebook, but it was around the time of Diwali. So people were very busy with their own household work. And it took me a while. And then suddenly it occurred to me, I have a nephew who's very fond of technology, and he always says, Google knows everything. So I said, why don't I ask Google? So I actually asked Google, what is there something that I can look up for this error that's getting from Facebook? And sure enough, I got a page and which said, if you play this video, you would get the steps to rectify this problem. I'm clicking on that video. Nothing is playing because it's not enabled for people with voiceover setup. And I got so frustrated. And luckily, my husband, Shankar, sighted person, was around. So he actually clicked the video for me. And sure enough, it was simple enough and we could get on. That's when it occurred to me that, for me, I don't have any urgent things that I need to do. And I'm not a student per se. I am having so much frustration because things are not accessible to me. And I was able to even understand much more the plight of a visually impaired student. It's daunting for you to go to a new place first, and then you're ready to learn and you want to be on par, if not better than a sighted person, because you don't want any undue, concessions given to you. You want to be one among them. But if you're not able to do some basic things, how is it that they will be able to educate themselves and be independent long term? So then, I, with the help of another young volunteer student, I was able to create a video, and I put that video in my message and sent out to some 250 plus of my friends that have supported Access Braille in the past. And sure enough, within a week's time, I think we reached close to the 30 students that we were pledging for. So I was very, very overwhelmed. And I'm very grateful for the support that the community has given for this project.
Yeah, that's
so I'm very hopeful.
Yeah, that's so great. We have such an amazing community, like worldwide, for this project. So I love that so much. As organizations as a whole, does Access Braille have like employees, or is it all volunteer based?
It is completely 100% volunteer based. So every dollar that is given for donation is completely spent on the project itself.
Okay, that's great, awesome. We've
been able to keep it very, very lean, and our expenses only whatever taxes that we have to file in individual states, because if we put in a donate button on the website, then we have to file with every state.
Yeah.
in the country. So recently we did not put the donate button on the website. We were only doing it through the YouTube video and my personal messages. But I think this year we feel that it will be worthwhile for us to put the donate button there and file ourselves, register ourselves in different states so that we are able to get the awareness going in different states and get more money for this project as well.
That is awesome. And so from like a high school or like a student's point of view, like how can a student or a high schooler, how can they help Access Braille? Like what can they do?
I'm so glad that, at this young age, all of you students are thinking about helping somebody other than yourselves. I mean, I cannot imagine myself doing something like that at your age. I really, really appreciate it. So, I mean, I particularly had this vision that Access Braille clubs would be there in almost every school, so that, the club members can get together every week or whatever frequency and start producing books. They read books all the time. So you can just, about the book production process that we go through, Harini. So we get a book that a student wants to read, then we scan it and we get PDF and the scanned version as well. We compare and make sure that there is no what we call a scanos, because sometimes, the ink could be smudged and then R and N would be together and it would look as M. And it may be a very legit word as well, but it may not make any sense. So we'll have to scan, and then there's a certain structure that you have to have for the document in order for it to be presented to the digital version so that it reads it out correctly for the listener. So this particular production, I had this vision that in every school, if something like that is there, then we could have students produce books as books become available, especially during summertime. All the fictional books, at least the material that you need for you to study at school would have a high priority. So somebody or the other will do something with it, right? But the story books that you like it the most, and it'll be a great entertainment for them as well. And so I was having this vision. So we started a few years back in our middle school, Kennedy Middle School in Cupertino area. The proud volunteer was Vikram Bharati, and he actually started a club. And we were doing it at the time. We didn't have this, robust workflow that we have now, where you can split the book into several groups, and then 10 pages could be given to people and then it could be stitched back together. We didn't have that option. So it took a long time. It was tedious. And the kids were already looking at the screen. So this was not something that they could produce many, many books, digital books. Yeah. And we also took it to Castellea, a private school, and the student volunteer was Mayuka Sarikai. And she actually recorded audio recording of some books. So we experimented with it. And then for the last 7 or 8 years, in the Clayton Valley Charter School in Concord area, the student volunteers, Aishwarya and Raghunandan, Sai Raghunandan, both have been running Access Braille clubs. They've been focusing on giving awareness to the students for what the visually impaired communities need. And they've been doing some local fundraisers and contributing to the fundraising events. And whenever we would have fundraising event, they have come and volunteered. So ideally, if like the way book clubs are there, if you can have a book club in every Access Braille club in every school, and the students can read books, especially now with the technology and the treaties where the books are easily available for the visually impaired, because you don't have to, no matter where the book is produced, you don't have to get permissions. The copyright is there for the visually impaired student to consume the book. Mm-hmm. And the technology is there now. Everything is produced in a format called EPUB. So you can take that EPUB and then produce books faster. But still, there are limitations in terms of science books, the STEM books, like the mathematics books, how to describe it. So there is a process involved. So for those books or fictional books, if there could be clubs formed out of students in as many schools as possible, then my dream of every book being available in the digital format would be fulfilled very easily, I feel.
I think that's an amazing dream to have, and hopefully that can be accomplished in all schools. And I really do pray that people do this. And yeah, I think it's great. And these volunteers, if they want to, you were talking about like the proofreading and like the or the making of like the PDF of like the books and stuff. Would they need any training for that?
Yes, it's a good question, Harini. Yes, they do need some training, but I know that the students are so savvy with technology, and especially the last 2 years, we've
We've
been
all been on
immersed in technology.
Yeah.
yeah. Even somebody, I mean, my mother-in-law, who is 88 years old, she learned how to use YouTube because she wanted to see some videos. So technology is something that you students at that age are so good at. So I don't think it would take it. I would say it would probably at the most maybe 20 minutes training for you to kind of understand the basics. And then maybe one dry run of a book that you do it in the group. Then after that, it would be like that. You should be able to produce. Yeah, that's what I would think.
Sure. Okay, thank you so much. So one of my final questions, like, are there any success stories that you want to share of maybe how these materials that Access Braille has provided has helped someone? I know you've mentioned there's obviously so many people who have been helped, but if you have anyone in particular that you remember that was anything specific?
Actually, I can talk about myself. So this was 2011, I want to say. The founder of Access Braille, Vijay Dilip.
Mm-hmm.
I met her at a place. I didn't know her at the time. And usually I get a ride to go to that place from somebody. And then that day that person could not get me back home. So Vijay Dilip was volunteered to bring me back home. And since she was in this field, she saw my vision situation. And then she asked me if I would be interested in reading books. I said, certainly, because I had not read books for like many years by the time because of my decreasing vision. And so I said, sure, I would. And then she had a meeting to go to. What she did was so beautiful. She canceled her meeting and she said, would you be interested in reading a book right now? I said, sure. Can I take you home? I said, Vijay, you had a meeting. Is that okay? I can wait for some time. She said, if I can make a difference in somebody's life right now, why postpone it? This is the mantra that I go by from that day onwards. So she took me home and she walked me through the Bookshare digital library. And she showed me how I can easily read a book. And it was a big change, big transformation for me, because until that time, I had difficulty reading books. I mean, after that also, I had difficulty because, as a visually impaired person, because you're not moving about, I tend to doze off as it's reading to me. Of course, now I have discovered ways where I just pace up and down as I'm listening to the book so that I am alert. So I have kind of modified different things. But that day was a big transformational day for me that, okay, the biggest part of my life where it was so easy for me to read a book, I'm able to read now. Mm-hmm. My dream is that was in English. My dream is that for my mother tongue, Tamil, and I read a lot of scriptures, and for that in Sanskrit, if I would have a way to read those books, that would be the best for me. I feel that, from most of the times, I feel that sight is overrated. And if I have all of this stuff, I can definitely say that sight is overrated.
No, I love that so much. It's great. Hopefully we can make that come true. We should totally get some foreign language speakers to come and translate some stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. And now that we are coming out of this pandemic a little bit, what are some challenges that you organization has faced through the pandemic?
Yeah, the biggest challenge was because we were completely operating on the fundraising events. We could not do it. I think 2020 March was the last one that we did, and we could not do it for 21 until the Giving Tuesday time. So that was the biggest. But now I think we are in a place we will be able to repeat the Giving Tuesdays, and we will be able to get the support from people. And we are hoping that every year we are also able to do another fundraising event. And the focus of this one would be more on awareness building in the community, so that, the students have so many technologies under their belt. With AI technologies, all of this stuff we should be able to do in no time, like even the digital proofreading and things like that, the way it's getting done, we should be able to have the AI technology do it automatically. And so the awareness, if we build, the students may be more motivated to contribute even in a different fashion. I mean, one is to volunteer reading the book or checking it physically, or coming up with technologies and tools, or building awareness, or going to a place where they have visually impaired students and observing them and seeing where all they can make a difference with their technology know-how. So that's the awareness building event we will be doing, I think, in the middle of this year.
We love that. I want to come join that event now.
Yes, I'm counting on you being there.
Yeah, I think it's very important to spread awareness, because I do know that, like, especially kids my age, they don't know a whole lot about like the visually impaired community and how hard, and what may seem easy to one person or to a sighted person is like extremely hard to someone who's visually impaired. So I think that's really important to learn about the things that we take for granted. So
yes, no, I agree. And the population of, the visually impaired population is also growing a little bit more now, with, many eye diseases that people are having at their older age as well. So having that awareness definitely will help all around.
Yeah, for sure. That's all I had. Would you like to share where they can find more information, like a website or anything like that?
Yes. So www.accessbraille.org is the website. I have to be very honest with you that we are working on revamping the website. It is a little bit outdated, but you get the idea from, we've had projects and things like that from the time that we have started. So you get the basic idea. And as I mentioned before, since we cannot solicit money yet, there is no place where you will see anything about that. You will only see things about the work. And Facebook, we have an Access Braille Facebook page as well that you can get to. And then we have some presence on YouTube as well. Not a whole lot, but some of the Harikathas fundraising events that we have done, we have it as part of our website, and then it will take you to the YouTube. And then we have a YouTube channel that we have started, and we have to slowly cut over some of the stuff that we have got on our website to the YouTube channel as well. And then, of course, we can leave our phone numbers, my phone number, and Swati Iyengar, who's the Chief Operating Officer, her phone number as well, and with you, and then accessbraille@gmail.com. It's very simple to remember. And that's the email that you can send email to if you have any questions as well.
Yeah, and I will put all of that information in the description box so you have easy access to it.
That's awesome, Harini. And I think, one other place where we could get help from students is that we don't have a great presence in Twitter. We don't have a presence at all in Instagram, and we don't have presence in TikTok. So if these social medias are some things that would excite the students and they can help us get there, that would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be great. I think even just personally speaking, that's where we get most of our information. So yeah, for sure. Well, that's all I had. Thank you so much for coming and talking to me today. I definitely learned so much, And I'm really, really excited to help out your organization and get involved with all these events and fundraisers that you guys are going to do. And I'm really excited. I hope all the viewers enjoyed and learned something about how to spread awareness and how they can help. I would love to hear your comments and suggestions on any of these interviews. If you have any organizations that you would love for me to interview, you can email me at knowyourcharity5@gmail.com. And I hope to see you all next time. Thank you.